Welcome to the Night Pod Cometh, a podcast covering the FXX show. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I'm Jamie G, Esquire the Fifth, also known as MD, Master of Surgical Arts. I'm here with my co-host Magnum Mills to smuggle some beers onto the boat and do whatever is asked of us because, implication.
Oh, the implication? And spoiler alert, D might even know what the implication is. I might have to just re-examine what the implication means to me, because it's kind of like that when you're out in the open water. And, thanks for listening to the podcast. Check us out on YouTube. Really appreciate it. We're sticking with season 11 here, one of our favorite seasons, and we're just going to do both parts of The Gang Goes to Hell, which makes up the, season 11 finale, episodes 9 and 10. Jamie G, hit us up with the, the episode details and the short plot summary.
Got you, my dude. This season 11, episode 9, The Gang Goes to Hell, part 1, originally aired on March 2nd, 2016. Season 11, episode 10, The Gang Goes to Hell, part 2, originally aired on March 9th, 2016. Both episodes were directed by Todd Bierman, who has directed 16 episodes of Sunny, the most recent being The Gang Replaces D with a Monkey in season 15. Both episodes were written by David Hornsby and Scott Martyr. Hornsby has been credited as a writer on 31 episodes of Sunny, and Martyr has been credited as a writer on 25 episodes of Sunny. So again, some history there.
Regular.
The biggest guest star here is Brian Doyle Murphy as Captain Garcia. Brian Cogman also appears as the insurance adjuster. Cogman is a writer and producer most known for his work on Game of Thrones. Magnum Mills, before we go into this episode, hit us with any notable callbacks, references, trivia, just general whatnot here.
Absolutely. And before we get into this, just y'all be warned, we are going to spoil everything that exists about It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, short of any set leaks for future seasons, of which I don't think exists. So pretty much we're going to spoil everything. And the notable stuff here, like you pointed out, Brian Doyle Murphy, he's actually the second Murray brother to appear on the show. Joel Murray appeared back in Frank's Back in Business. It happened on Parks and Rec. Can Sunny somehow get Bill Murray to appear on screen? Small spoilers for Parks and Recreation, but you should watch it anyways if you have not. And this is the fourth two-part episode of Sunny following The Gang Gets Whacked, Mac and Charlie die, and the high school reunion. And when we see the gang, go to their suite, their room number is H666. A little bit of the, adding to the hell illusion here. And we see Charlie dressed up as first mate, Gilligan from Gilligan's Island, to quote, Richard Dawson in The Running Man, like, yeah, the one with the boat. And we hear Dennis once again discuss boats, water, and the implication. Much like when other members of the gang had their own versions of the Dennis system, we find out that D has their own version of the implication, which is maybe worse than Dennis's.
It might be Magnum.
Yeah, it really is. Like, 'cause it involves like fake rape accusations. Like it's all really bad. It's all bad. And anyway, Dennis tells Mac that he has kept the letters from his dad because he was protecting them, as Mac's dad would probably eat our butts. That's a direct callback to Mac and Charlie Die Part 1. And finally, we get a callback to another one of my favorite episodes, The Gang Gets Quarantined, when Mac reminds everybody to drink at least a half a capful of mouthwash every day to keep the shakes at bay. And the quick plot synopsis is Mac gets the gang to go on a dry, Christian-themed cruise. It goes about as well as you'd expect, with the gang having to confront some shocking truths while trapped in the brig of a sinking ship.
Magnum Mills, I gotta say, bro, we're doing all of season 11, and this was one of our favorite seasons. And looking back before we started this rewatch and redo of season 11, I always looked at these final two episodes of the season, The Gang Goes to Hell part 1 and part 2, as the low point, as the worst part of the season. I was pleasantly surprised on the rewatch here. These were not as, I was way too critical of these. I enjoyed it, Magnum Mills. Can't wait to do it. And it is time to start breaking down this two-parter right here, right now. And we're just going to go through the whole thing in chronological order, starting with, at an unknown place, we see the gang dressed in white bathrobes in an all-white space. They say that they are good people and offer to tell their story about what happened when the cruise ship went down.
Well, it was obvious they were going for it, like St. Peter at the gates kind of thing. But knowing the show, I knew there was no way that was actually going to happen. I get kind of why they did it as a framing device, but it didn't really work for me. But I did like when Frank was like, everyone else is kind of being apologetic, and Frank's like, I did what I did. You don't like it, you can kiss my ass. So shout out Frank.
Yeah, Frank's the OG, dude. He's a real one all the way through, the realest and the truest. No doubt about it. I thought this was kind of intriguing, Magnum Mills, just because you got Charlie's got the injury on the face, and they're all kind of disheveled and kind of nervous about being judged. And it was just kind of funny because, again, they do such a good job at taking huge sensitive topics like religion, or you can fill in the blanks here, and they have a little fun with it. And they do it in a way that's I don't know.
Questioning faith
works.
is probably the underlying thing throughout the whole episode, be it your faith in God or your faith in yourself, or who do you believe you are? Like someone like Mac, who we see like flip-flop in this episode from, he's Mac, he's in denial, then he's openly gay, and then all of a sudden he flips back again. Yeah. Again, a lot of interesting stuff going on. Overall, maybe, I think it could have been a great episode if you managed to condense it all. There's probably too much there, but it still does feel a little thin, stretched out over 2 episodes. What are you going to do sometimes? And again, I think it held up a little better than I would have thought based on what I remembered from the last couple of times I watched it.
Magnum Mills, one thing I do want to say before we move on to the second scene is I did think it was kind of cool how in the end, and again, we are going to spoil the shit out of this episode. In the end, you realize it was the insurance adjuster. My whole time I was thinking it's probably the cops,
Yeah, that was my initial thought. I think,
or the captain. Or the captain or something. I did.
Yeah, like a military. Like if it was like imagine it was like a cruise ship, like
right.
Judge and jury. That would be kind of over the top funny. I could see them doing something like that, where then they're like banned from cruise ships for life or some shit. That would have been probably a funny alternate for it. I'm there for it. Overall it's fine. It seemed like they were going a little bit too hard with this. Purgatory, they were trying to all assign themselves like one of the 7 deadly sins. That part of it just didn't land for me. Like they just didn't need it. It just seemed a little bit like added on. It didn't add any value or comedy, I didn't think.
Well, we go from there, Magnum Mills, and we see the gang board the ship, and they really lay the plot out for us here. We learn that Mac was chosen for this cruise by a new church, and it's a dry cruise with no alcohol. The rest of the gang appeases Mac by agreeing not to drink and wearing cross necklaces. As soon as Mac leaves, we see the rest of the gang has smuggled a ton of beer onto the ship. Frank wants to take his cross off because it's literally burning his skin. And right after Frank says, "Yeah, screw God," the sound of the ship whistle pierces the air.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting, opening. And I do have to say, as a guy who's worked at a store with beer, dude, those suitcases, there's no, oh my God, they would have weighed like over 100 pounds, I think, for the amount of beer that's stuffed in it. And I do sympathize with Charlie when he was like, you know what? I could drink that whole suitcase. Charlie, I've also felt like sometimes I could drink that whole suitcase.
Yes, you could. Yes, you could. Dude, this one for me, something that was really funny was, Frank's just, you gotta love Frank because he stays true blue to himself this entire episode. And he's, when he's the cross is burning itself in, and they're like, "Geez, you could be the devil," and he's like, he starts laughing like, "Ha, I could be Satan," like excited about it. Like,
I might be saying screw God, and then the whistle hits. Like, hey, I will say,
he's like excited about it. Like, that's right. I could be saying, like, he's like happy about it. It's just so Frank, so good.
Oh, and shout out to the sound editing throughout this episode because they do a great job. We see it later with like Dynasty, how they do the thunderclaps and the engine sounds. Like there's actually a lot of different sound things going on based on the ship. There's a lot of green screen work that didn't work for me here, but I think the basically all of the sound editing and whatnot is top notch.
Yep. In rewatching it, I realized that they did a little bit of foreshadowing here when Charlie asked Mac if God can prevent the ship from sinking. I thought that was pretty cool because, eventually that's what happens. And we see Charlie freak out with, I used to never even leave Philadelphia. Now you guys got me going here. You got me going there. I'm going to die on the ship. And, so that was kind of cool how they did that a little bit too. Yeah.
They do the same thing with Frank talking about the captain getting drunk. Like he never lets up on it. Like even when the beer is gone, he just automatically assumes like, oh yeah, that's gone. That doesn't exist anymore.
Drank.
But I
Yeah.
will say, like, when they storm the bridge later and the captain takes their shit, and Frank's like, take it away from him. The way he takes it and looks at him, I'd swear that he was going to actually go drink goddamn torpedo juice.
Oh, 100%. Dude, he took it. He had a little pep in his step, like, because he came back
just
for it.
saying.
They're arresting him. And he's like, yep, nope, I'm going to take that. And
dude, let's be honest. Would the gang ever actually go even for free? Would they ever really go on a dry cruise? Really?
I don't think it's possible. They can't.
No, I don't. I don't even think Mac would do it. They even,
There's
they pay homage to it. And actually, in the gang gets quarantined by when Mac says like, oh, you have to have the, half a cup of mouthwash to, hoard off the shakes. And Dennis is like, oh yeah, that's good. Like, so we don't get sick. Basically referencing how they've just accepted their alcoholism.
Yes, because they all thought they had the flu, and then they just realized that they
no, we're just alcoholics. It's fine.
Yeah,
like,
we just
we're
need
immune
to
to
drink.
everything. Everything. As long as we drink alcohol, we'll be fine.
Yep. I like that.
I don't want to make anybody mad. Like, we're referring to the what they're wearing as cross necklaces because that's how they refer to it in the show. I don't know the proper terminology. I know what not to do, and that's what Maybe did in Arrested Development when she's like, "Oh yeah, everyone was wearing those little T necklaces." I know that's not right, so we're going with the cross necklaces.
And I thought it was cool, Magnum Mills, with the necklace with Frank, with it burning, and you're kind of like, wow. And then in the next scene, you realize that Mac's been putting battery acid on the back of it to kind of scare him straight. I thought that was kind of witty and pretty.
Yeah,
funny.
I was really wondering how they were gonna. I thought maybe it was gonna be like fake gold, and like Mac was so cheap that he got him like fake gold, and they were allergic to it or something. But this obviously worked as well. And right before we get out of here, I do want to say that, Dennis is kind of like mad that Frank bought costumes, but we'd already established that Dennis was back in, like after the gang misses the boat, back in on the costume. Like Frank had the spots and the run ham. Like he really shouldn't be surprised that they brought costumes, right?
He definitely should not be surprised that they brought costumes and they're looking to get into a little action. I think that's a foregone conclusion. I did like that Dennis tells Dee, that's right, Dee, no one will call you a bird. And then essentially later in the episode, he calls her a bird in front of the crowd of people after she gets called bird lady, like after she gets, because she literally had a bird shit in her mouth. So, I mean, that was about the highlight for Dee in this episode for me, but that I did enjoy that.
Absolutely. I did as well. And after that, we see Mac, who had gone to, do the Bible study thing. He's meeting with the cruise organizers, so I'm assuming are the reason he's there. He admits to, like you said before, putting the battery acid on Frank's cross necklace to give him the impression that he might be a demon. More people join them, and they begin rehearsing. Sit down. You're rocking the boat for the talent show. To Mac's surprise, he absolutely loves it.
Yeah, this was hilarious to see Mac.
I mean, he goes from like, oh, there's no way, all right, I'll try. It's the same thing when he's converted later in the episode. Like these guys, that's why I think like they deliberately recruited Mac because they knew he was in the closet and they were trying to help him come out or something like that.
Yeah,
because like they kind of know, and like the joy, again, we'll say like when he actually gets into doing it.
Oh, when I'm ready to go again. They're like, well, we're kind of taking turns. Nope, from the top. Like, I mean, he absolutely loves it, and he's good at it. And it's good to see Mac.
Oh, he's so good that if you actually look at the scene, Mac is just singing and doing the whole thing. Everyone else actually still has their book in their hand, but Mac doesn't even need the book already. It's only the second time through, and he's already off book. I thought that was really fun. And, there's a little bit of the dialogue here is kind of some nice double entendre stuff. Where Max says like, oh yeah, my friends, I've kind of taken on a missionary position with them. And then later on, like when he's talking to David's like, listen, when your friends are ready, they'll come.
Yeah.
Like they, I have to believe that Sonny is trying to do a little bit of a send up of kind of like the cruise ship, whatnot, and the Mac kind of being oblivious. So I like that.
Yeah, that was good. This was a fun scene for me, and again, just kind of paints the scene here. You see this evolve with Mac and the two partners of the church there as the episode goes on. From there, Magnum Mills, Charlie and Frank are walking around in winter bubble jackets that are absolutely huge. Charlie comments that it isn't a dry cruise as they have screwdrivers. Look, they got them right over there. Frank attempts to explain that they are mixers. They attempt to sneakily drink beers, but they're quickly caught. The captain comes over and makes them remove their jackets. Under those jackets, Charlie and Frank have taped all over the gang's remaining beers to their bodies. Captain confiscates all of their beer. Magnum Mills, this to me was hilarious as Frank is trying to explain orange juice to Charlie. And Charlie's like, oh, like straight mixer? I mean, so funny, dude. Just didn't get the concept of seeing orange juice and having it not be a screwdriver. It's just one of the best moments for me of the whole episode here.
See, that's one of those things where I definitely laughed. But the problem is, like, Charlie's not that dumb. He works at a fucking bar. He literally knows, like, there's no way Charlie doesn't understand that. I guess you can make the argument that he's so drunk somehow he forgot what orange juice is, but there's literally no way, after having worked and owned a bar for that long, that I'll buy a lot of the dumb Charlie shit. Whatever. Honestly, it doesn't even really take me out of the episode. I think they only do it to set up the bit later to, like, oh yeah, we're gonna cut the fuel with the mixers, which I mean really would not. Well, that'll be a whole thing of its own. But I do like, the exchange between Charlie and Frank, where, Charlie's like, oh, when was the last time you drank straight mixer? And Frank's like, oh, I had a Diet Cola mixer a while ago. I definitely cracked the fuck up.
Yeah, and I thought the bubble jacket thing was funny here because you see Frank, he's got like an actual like harness, right? And he's in all the spots for the beers. And then Charlie's just got like a vest that's like duct taped, and it's just he duct taped all the holders and stuff in there. I mean, it's just really, really cool.
Yeah, and we definitely say a shout out Brian Doyle Murphy as the captain. Great. You've seen him, in a bunch of things over the years, like Caddyshack, one of the Murray brothers. Very cool here. I do think that Charlie would have had some trouble getting those beers out of there. In the fact that Frank has that vest, I feel like he's done this before. So because of that, I do think they were like, that was the least sneaky beer I've ever seen anybody drink. Like in the middle of everyone wearing these jackets, they try to like take this.
Yeah, it wasn't
a very
exactly
poor attempt, I feel.
It wasn't.
If you were playing a video game, like
least.
you would get like your stealth level would be 0 on that. It was very bad.
Yeah, it wasn't. They stood out just a smidge. Just don't want to get sick. You don't want to catch the flu on the boat, man. They're trying to stay warm. I mean, geez. Great scene though.
Remember when we were worried about boat flu? And then after that, we go up to the sun deck where Dee has a confrontation with a woman over a deck chair. This forces Dee to take the only other available chair, which is next to Dennis. Dennis talks about struggling with lust and explains the implication of Dee, which she totally understands. In fact, she has her own version of the implication. Just as they enjoy a bonding moment, a bird shits in Dee's open mouth.
This was spot on. And, I love that Dee's progression of like trying to like not be normal Dee. Bitch, move your shit, and then like, I'm sorry, I was here. So can you get your shit out of here? Like, it's just so funny. Like that was kind of cool for me with Dee here.
Yeah, and that lady got there first. Like Dee did not have dibs. Like that lady clearly got there first.
Absolutely. But the fact that Dee like thought she did and was like, basically just immediately called her a bitch and started attacking her over it. Again, classic Dee. She's not very socially acceptable in terms of how she interacts.
Where Dennis is like, nobody's shitting on you, because when she goes over, she's like, everyone's shitting on me, and then the bird literally shits on her. I mean, they're not being subtle here, but it was still funny.
It was funny. And again, Dennis here gets a little bit creepy here, but I did laugh at the implication thing. I mean, in the fact that he's already because right away Dee's like, are you kidding me? She looks like she's 12, because she does, which added to the creepiness of this with Dennis. And then Dennis is like, no, she's legal. I've confirmed.
I'm assuming that's what he was doing on his iPad or whatever the whole time.
Well, that he had her ID. And that's what
it's funny. He's definitely upgraded to an iPad since Charlie catches Leprechaun. So a little something to note there. Again, I will say that the green screen in the background was not great. The water was okay, but the sky background was really bad. Again, they got to do what they do. Caitlin Olsen did some very, very funny bird shit in your mouth work. I haven't seen a lot of it, but I really like her version of it. So
yep,
that was fun.
she really kind of stooped to a new low here for me though with her version of the implication. That was not the greatest thing in the world. It's like, oh god, but it was so trashy and so D that it worked, but it was like, oh man, that's a little uncomfortable, and it's supposed to be. If that
Yeah,
doesn't make you uncomfortable, you're not paying attention.
that was very D. Right up with her, when she's complaining about the lady who took her chair, and she's like, oh, but but there are certain see you next Tuesdays on the ship who are making it very difficult. I'll give them credit that they bring that back around, which we will see soon. But the next thing we actually see here is when Mac is out there with the two male cruise organizers, and they're playing shuffleboard, and they're trying to help Mac deal with his religious guilt, which is very guilty in the very specific way with the cat of nine tails. And Mac turns around, he points about, talking about God, and he points at a big storm on the horizon. When he turns back around, he sees that the two men are kissing. It turns out that they're married, and that's just too much for Mac, and he runs away.
Yeah, and Magnum immediately it's no, why, no, bad. I mean, his reaction here is so funny.
I think he says gay like 8, 9, 10 times in a row. So he's like, gay.
Yeah, gay, no, gay.
And no one else is looking too. Like he's trying to do it. Like he thinks that it's
And I thought it was great too, where where they're so calm and collected, and like, because he's my husband and I love him. and
throughout the whole episode, those dudes never break. They're always just very kind and excellent and great people, and try to do nothing but help Mac like be his honest self.
I like too where it's like you think lightning or you think thunder is God clapping. And Mac did, like he definitely does.
He goes out and asks for it, and then when it doesn't happen, even when he comes back to talk to me, it's like, yeah, I was talking to God, but my timing was off. That's not the exact quote, but something like that. Like I never got the timing right, something like that. Yeah.
I never got the timing right. He's out there in the rain, dude. Jesus, you're soaking wet. Yeah, I mean that was, they go a little over the top here for me with Mac's Catholic guilt, but again, I think it's meant to be a satire of sorts with just how ridiculous Catholic guilt is, and I thought that was kind of cool, but it's a little much.
Doesn't really stop from there because we kind of go to, it's not the dining hall, but it's one of those big kind of auditorium things. And Dee sits down at a table again next to Dennis, who's like, oh, what? It's the only seat open again. And Frank and Charlie, they're all at the table. We find out there's no more alcohol. Charlie drank all the mouthwash. The storm is getting worse. Dennis continues to obsess over the young girl he saw earlier on the sun deck. And then Mac comes rushing in, and he informs the gang that there's a gay couple and says that being gay is not Christian. Frank and Charlie have had enough. They take off to try to recover the beer and or other alcohol. And a voice announces that the talent show is about to begin, and they introduce a magician. We see that the magician is the same woman that Dee had the confrontation with earlier. She acknowledges Dee and asks her to be a volunteer and come on stage.
Magnum Mills, I thought one of the funnier parts here was when Mac comes rushing in and he's like, there's two guys in this church who are gay. And Charlie looks at him and goes, who's the other guy? I thought that was really funny.
Everybody laughs. Yeah,
except Mac. He's like, I don't get it. What do you mean? I mean, that was great. That was great. And then of course, I gotta hand it to Dee here. Caitlin Olsen. I mean, when she goes up on stage and she's, I knew it was coming, but she's like, let me show you a magic trick. And she just straight up punches a lady in the face. And then the lady's like, what is wrong with you? You broke my tooth. And everyone starts booing her. And she's like, well, I did have like first dibs on a chair earlier that she snaked me out of. Like she's trying to justify like randomly coming on stage and punching a lady in the mouth. Like,
yeah. I mean, that's very good. The only thing before she gets on stage, it's pretty funny that, we heard Dennis be like, oh yeah, no one will call her a bird. And the lady's like, yeah, come on, bird lady, come up on stage, bird girl or whatever. And then Dennis is like, yes, we call her a bird. We also call her a bird. He's so excited trying to get everyone in the crowd to call her a bird. And I will say that like the chick Dennis is creeping on, he's like, oh, she's showing off her skin and everything. She is very covered up and conservative. And Dennis is definitely extra creepy.
Dennis is insane. But then again, that's what she does. keeps showing up and putting herself in front of me. I mean, he's the way it's I find it hilarious though, because he's just Howerton's so good in the character of doing the character of Dennis, where he starts to go down these really dark, creepy rabbit holes, and just the way he like explains it to himself out loud and creates a reality in which it's totally acceptable. Like it's masterful. It's horrible and terrible, but it's so funny to watch him do it. But it definitely is pretty creepy, Magnum Mills. From there, Frank and Charlie are now in the bowels of the ship, and we see Frank dressed in a captain's uniform, and our guy Charlie is dressed like the first mate. That's right, Gilligan from Gilligan's Island. Absolutely kills. Frank says that they are searching for boat fuel, which they will drink after they cut it with the mixers we saw earlier. This was a great scene. I love this scene. Charlie in the Gilligan was amazing, dude. Like then I'm starting to think like, dude, could they do like an always Fear and Loathing in Philadelphia, where like Charlie's Hunter S. Thompson in that thing? I mean, this was very, very cool.
I enjoyed it very much. You have the good kind of exchange where, Charlie's kind of asking about where they're getting the beer or whatever. And Frank's like, no, like the pipes of the party. I always just thought like the pipes of the party, like that, somebody
I'll call flowing up and down through here.
And the only other thing I'll say is, dude, like the idea that Frank, they just take this huge wrench and they're going to just wail on fuel lines on a boat. Yeah. Like when I first watched the episode, I honestly thought when the problems started happening that they caused it. I thought that would have made a lot of sense. So I was a little surprised when that didn't happen. And right after that, we go back up to the main deck and the storm is here. And we see Mac out there and he's talking to God about how conflicted he is. He asked God to show him a sign with some thunder and lightning, but gets no response.
Yeah. And this one was, again, Mac going all in on this thing. It was perfect that it was raining and he's out there getting soaked. And
the main takeaway here for me, I think, was like the whole musical thing, where when he's like literally praying to God, he's like, I used to think it was worship I was into, but then song and dance, I got to be honest, I've really taken to it. And I think that musicals are going to be a huge part of my life going forward. And we do kind of see that when he ultimately does come out, I think. So at least that kind of part of the episode 6, on some level.
Yeah, that was cool. I will say that I thought it was kind of a weird and odd dig at the Vietnamese situation, where he's like, in my old church, but then they brought too many Vietnamese people in. Like it didn't seem to go there.
Yeah, you didn't need to make him, like to Mac to do that at that level at that point. Like,
yeah, it probably could have done without it. It would have been better off if they would have, did something else there. But that, other than that, that was the scene. Magnum Mills. From there, we go back to the magic show. And Dee offers to do her magic trick, which is really just her punching the magician in the face, knocking out one of her teeth. And Dee's taken away by security and thrown into the brig. As I mentioned before, this was my favorite part of this kind of, they did it in 2 parts, the part we just referenced and now here where they come back and forth to it. But I thought this was the funniest part of it, when Dee just, her trying to explain why, like justify why she punched her in the face. Like she did try to snake my spine. I mean, that was funny.
That was pretty much assault. I mean, it's, fairly ironic that we're doing this after the Chris Rock, Will Smith thing, and, to shout out our podcast, PvP, a Peaky Blinders podcast, where we're covering the final season of Peaky Blinders. Dee's got a pretty wicked red right hand,
Yeah, she'll hit you with that red right hand. I did think it was funny too when they put her in the cell and she's like, what is this, boat jail? Like, I'm not a pirate. Like, I'm not a Somali pirate.
And I remember that South Park episode where like Carlton becomes a Somali pirate and stuff. So that really rings through. And then Dennis, remember when he promised earlier that it was cool? And he's like, get off the stage, bird girl. He's trying to get the crowd yelling at her.
Yep. Oh, he jumps right in. And of course, we saw a little bit more creepy Dennis here as he sends the drink, the daiquiri, the virgin daiquiri to his girl he's creeping on hard, Magnum.
Yeah, because it's sweet, dude. It's sweet.
Yep.
And after that, we go up to the bridge and the storm is real. And, the captain, they're trying to figure out what to do with the crew, how to deal with the storm. Frank and Charlie come in and they are drunk off of orange juice and boat fuel, which Frank calls torpedo juice. And then they get thrown in the brig where they join Dee.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of a win for me when and they're staggering around and pushing buttons, and they're just, I mean, obviously not realistic at all. I've been on a cruise ship. You cannot just walk into the captain's quarters or the main control center room where they're, controlling
And
the
Charlie's
engine,
ripping
but
out wires and shit.
yeah, Charlie.
Like I figured again, like, all right, I'm like, all right, between what they did with the fuel line and that's what's going to cause the problems with the boat. And
Yeah.
it did that really somehow that didn't mean anything. And same thing when the captain takes the drinks away, he like the way he looks at Frank's like, don't let him drink them. And then we found out at the end the captain wasn't drunk. It kind of like, I don't know, it really felt that they were setting up something different here.
Yeah, it was kind of weird how they spent a lot of time on the captain being drunk, and the way the captain takes the torpedo juice. Frank's like, "Don't let him drink our torpedo juice."
And he kind of like wait, like
yeah, he was like
gives
excited.
him a look
Like,
where
a
I'm
little
like, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna like as soon as the camera cuts away, I'm chugging those.
I do say I'm there, Magnum Mills. Anytime we get Frank and Charlie wasted, that's a good time for me. So I'm there for that, whether it's on torpedo juice, boat fuel, or not.
Boat fuel, dude, you die. Like even like I feel
Charlie.
like, how many
Charlie
ounces
drinks
of boat fuel could you drink and not like?
I mean,
like because they have no ill effects either.
How many gallons of paint can you drink? I mean, Charlie's a unique creature.
Like they did all this and they never had to use the bucket in the break, so I'm not sure how that works.
That's true. I thought it was just, again, Charlie drunk in a Gilligan's outfit is, I guess that's my jammy jam Magnum Mills. From there, we're in a hallway where Dennis aggressively corners a young woman who he's been stalking. Dennis gives her back her driver's license, which he stole at some point. Dennis notes that she was born in 96, which is good because it's past the cutoff. The look on the woman's face shows that she fully understands the implication of Dennis' words and actions. She screams and runs away, and Dennis comments that isn't supposed to happen. Dennis is escorted by security to the brig where he joins Charlie, Frank, and Dee. I thought that, again, Dennis is just unrelenting in his justification of being a total freaking pervy creep here, where he's like, well, it was the thunder and the weather making it creepy.
And there was a great job with that. Like it was cut very well in the way they kind of shot it like a horror movie, kind of a little bit low and tight, and it all worked well. Obviously, Howerton is so good at this, but actually the actress did a great job too. Because kind of at the beginning, it seems like she's maybe even slightly intrigued and like flattered, and like she just gets gradually goes from like flattered to fucking terrified. And Dennis even tells him like, oh, you have nowhere to go, despite that, they're showing the hallways. And on a cruise ship, there's generally it's hard to get into a quarter, really. Like you're like a T, you can't really get like Dennis didn't figure that out somehow.
He didn't, but I did. It was just he's so good here because like, come in your room. But that's not what I meant. But
that's what she said himself, basically.
Yes. That I thought that was funny. You're right. At the beginning, she's kind of like smiling and like, oh wow, okay, like, and then it turns into like, oh my god, like this guy is going to rape and kill me. Like,
oh, because Howerton gets progressive. Like, oh well, maybe you should let me in your room, and maybe you're thinking, oh, I don't want to let you in my room.
Oh yeah, it's top notch.
As we see before, Dennis wants to get off very specifically, and I think the whole point of this is he wants to get off on the implication thing.
Yeah, Dennis is he targets what he wants to get off to, and that changes throughout his challenge. And this challenge was the implication. Magnum Mills. From there, Mac knocks on the door of the gay cruise organizers and on their door and announces that he is there to convert them. They flip it around and offer to convert Mac, who agrees. 5 minutes later, Mac walks into the brig and announces to the gang that he is gay and there is no God. Unfortunately, Mac let the door close behind him and they're all locked in. Dee panics and claims that they're already in hell. There's a huge crash and everyone is knocked to the floor.
That's about right. As we said, like we're talking about Mac looking for God to talk to him with the thunder and lightning. And he says something to the guys like it's like I was out in the rain looking for God, but I never got the timing right. And then Mac says something along the lines of, I thought I was here to get my mind open, but now I realize I'm here to close your mind. Let's be honest here. The idea that it took less than 5 minutes for them to convince Mac that he's gay was pretty hysterical. After all his hemming and hawing or whatever, it was just like, think about like Reynolds versus Reynolds, a serial defense or whatever. They would basically argue anything to death. And somehow these guys within 5 minutes just, convinced Mac that he was gay. I mean, maybe, as a callback to The Gang Hits the Slopes, maybe it was like, the boy said, he's just like, oh, well, like, what if I show him my dick? Maybe that's all,
Yeah.
wasn't that simple?
Yeah, no, and it's also like I kind of get where he's coming from a little bit, but it's a big leap here to just completely disavow God as well. I mean, that just kind of is like, wow, and God's like, I get the punchline here of like, there's no way God would make me gay, so he can't be real. But again, a little bit over the top. I think we probably could have done without that bonus part here. Some of the things with Mac in this episode, they kind of like added one too many things, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Mac had easily, like, he probably had the biggest 2 storylines of the whole episode. And that pretty much takes us out of the first part of the episode. And they bring us more or less right into the second episode, where we go back to that white room we're in at the beginning. And the gang argues whether or not they should recap what had happened previously. They kind of do it. And then we continue the story from, where we left off in the brig after the huge crash. And, the only thing I'll say there is, like, when they're arguing about the recap, like what Howerton says and everything, that definitely sounds like something that the writers and the producers would argue about within themselves. Like, do we show it like previously on? Do we have the characters like give it an open recap? Like, do we do a voiceover? So that seemed kind of, a very real thing. And it was okay. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the framing device overall.
I would agree with that. From there, Magnum Mills, we go back in the brig, and the gang begins to panic as sirens sound and the ship starts making strange noises. The noises stop, but it seems like the ship has stopped moving as well. Each member of the gang attempts to illustrate what sound the ship engine should be making.
I mean, I think all we really have to do here is, comment on Dennis carrying around an onion to, I never really remember that, but to make him cry. And really the most important thing, who made the best boat sound?
Dude, I gotta hand it to Charlie. I thought the
I mean, I have to say Dennis was right. Is that computers definitely do play, some part with motors these days. But yeah, they actually make fucking sounds. And then we kind of move, when we move on to the same thing when they have the compromise. Like, it's great. Like, don't you believe that the gang could spend 4 hours arguing about this? Because after 4 hours and 6 minutes, they finally stopped making noises and, resolve the conflict, which is actually good for them. They've reduced the amount of time it had taken them to reduce conflict. Then Charlie panics again. He starts pounding on the door. Dennis manages to calm him down by doing some oi, 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 oi. Frank says that they should play some games to pass the time. Dee has had enough. She goes into the furthest corner of the break and tells everybody to leave her alone.
Yeah, and this couple things here, Magnum Mills. One, I really enjoyed the oi 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 thing because it's like they're like, what is that? He's like, it's this thing I've been doing with Charlie when he gets all worked up. It seems to work. And then Charlie's just like, oi oi oi. He's like calming.
And they're all doing it by the end of the episode.
So oh yeah.
It becomes a runner.
That worked for me. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's it reminded me of back in the day. South Park did a thing with, like, I think Caesar Milan, like the dog whisperer dude, where he trade card and he'd be like, tss, tss. Like, I thought there was a little bit of that in there, like Dennis trying to train Charlie to a certain extent. And I do say that the whole negotiation thing reminds me season 13, the gang escapes from the escape room, and all the guys sit at a table and they argue for like an hour about who will be declared like the Duke and who will eat steak first and all this shit. And they finally like open the thing to read the first clue. They realize they wasted all their time negotiating all this bullshit. So this is definitely, not the first time we'll see this dynamic. And I like that, quite a bit. And I thought that was funny.
It definitely was. It definitely was. From there, Magnum Mills, the talk turns to letters between Mac and his dad as Dennis does a spot on impression of Luther, Mac's dad. That's right, Luther Vandross. Just kidding. They decide to pass the time by doing impressions. This brings Dee back out over to the gang, but she declines to do Obama and then tells Dennis to do CC Pounder, which he absolutely nails. Dee responds by doing a horrible, disgusting, racist impression of President Obama.
Yeah, the actress from The Shield. Love that show. Okay, yeah, no, I can do that. Yeah, let's see. God damn it, Dutch! What other errands do you have us running for the DA?
Yeah, I mean, you can't even. I mean, you got to give shout out to Howerton, dude. Both
Oh, he
the
crushes.
Luther impression and the CCH Pounder. I mean, it's so good that honestly, I totally believe that when he did it, that was the actor's honest reactions when they all kind of like, oh shit, like it's so, you know. And then Frank gives the quote like, because D's like what do you mean, Frank? You don't even know who she is. And Frank's something like, well, I just assume she's a no nonsense black broad from the precinct. And I was like, that's exactly who she is.
Yeah, this whole exchange here is really funny, and I like how immediately upon impressions D comes back over, because D is always doing ridiculous, stereotypical, racist impressions, and it's actually
and
really
they're
funny.
still the worst, and they keep that up. She gets no redemption here. I think that works well. That kind of sends D back into exile in the corner. After the commercial break, we come back and Max decided to host like an imaginary dinner. And they gather around the table, and dude, Mac could come up with like skinless boiled chicken with brown rice and blue Gatorade. And they talk about tasting blue or whatever. They argue over how they're going to eat the imaginary meal. It's not going well. Imaginary dog, might have gotten kicked. And then D gets back in the mix by, she makes some blender sounds, and then she's offering milkshakes to the rest of the gang. So Jamie G does D's milkshake bring you to the yard?
It brings me to the yard for sure, just because when I was watching, I was like, damn, I haven't had a milkshake in a while, and that just sounded fun. I enjoyed this scene, dude, because because they're all, Mac is really struggling to have any sort of appetizing meal to lay out, and they're all starting to interrupt him. He's like, this is my meal, and Dennis is like, well, then take us there. And he's really trying, and finally they all just do their own thing, and I enjoyed this. You watch them like slowly cutting. I just thought that the work here was really good, and I enjoyed this a lot. And then when he flips the table, why'd you do that? You really ruined a good time.
That is great. I really enjoy it. Just really surprised me, because it's in the same season. Like, we get you would think when Max kind of like, he can't think of anything, he can't think of Mac's famous macaroni and cheese to serve. And again, this is definitely not the first time or the last time where we hear members of the gang talking about eating or drinking colors or how colors taste. Like, this definitely is a thing. And here we see Dennis, like when they do the imaginary dog, even though Dennis is literally on the other side, kind of, we see him kind of like, oh no. And that gets locked down in Wolf Cola, Public Relations Nightmare, where he's on the news segment, the dog comes back on, he's like, oh, you're not a dog guy, and that gets him in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and I thought Frank grabbing his invisible hooker was really funny, and like how he picks her up and the leg gets on Charles. Charles, come on, man! They got hooker heel all of my mashed potatoes. I mean, it's just so, expect me to eat this? I got hooker heel, and that's so funny, dude.
Yeah,
like that was a great scene. That was a great scene.
That was all great. So of course, after all that, the gang is like, all right, well, they're done. They're all on D's level. They're done with each other. They're all going to just sit in silence. And then after, again, I think a commercial break, they get a little stop action on. If you don't remember, back in the day, there was this whole thing where you made kind of like music out of random sounds with objects, and they do that for a minute. It was fine. But then we find out, because when Dee's making some sounds where she's sitting, it's a bench and it opens, and they find a flare gun inside. They argue about the gun for a while, and then there's another huge crash. The electricity goes out, in the room they're in, the brig literally flips over.
I like that they did the whole stomp thing, and it was actually pretty well done, but it was such a short-lived fad of like 6 months.
Yeah, it kind of makes the episode seem dated. Yeah,
but a little bit. But I liked how after they finished it, they're like, that was terrible, that was horrible, when it was actually pretty good, actually. Yeah,
I will just say, though, I'm pretty sure those buckets were in there for them to use as a bathroom, so I don't really know. They were in there for a long, for a minute, so I don't know if using those for musical purposes was the best use of them. And
a little nasty there.
Yeah, dude. If you're Janet, sorry, it's just, yes, very, very, very nasty. And at this point, the gang is convinced nobody's going to come help them. Charlie is wondering if they're already dead. Maybe they're in purgatory, already in hell. And he's so insistent. He decides he'll prove it. He takes the flare gun, puts it to his head, pulls the trigger.
Yeah, this was classic Charlie in that, like, he really believed it. He's like, I'll prove it to, and just does it. I thought it was funny when he finds the flare gun and he's like, I don't know what you guys are capable of, therefore I will hold the gun. And he's the one that actually ends up using it on himself.
Yeah, see, I figured it would play into like after the ship sank, they would survive somehow, and they would need to like use that flare gun to like signal help, but then Charlie would waste it or something. So I was kind of surprised it turned out the way it did. But that's pretty much all that happens there. And then kind of cut away, goes to black, and then it's basically Charlie wakes up because he shot himself in the head with a flare. He's okay, but the brig is filling up with water now on its side, and the gang is facing the end of their lives. So you know what happens? They panic and they start to reveal their secrets. Dee says that she caught Mac wearing a Tony Romo Cowboys jersey, which is blasphemy to the rest of the gang. Mac responds by telling Frank that Charlie changes the prescription for his glasses to keep Frank dependent on Charlie. That makes Charlie tell Mac that Dennis has been intercepting and destroying letters to Mac from his father from prison. Dennis says that he was just protecting Mac, and then his dad had stopped writing after Mac never responded. This absolutely crushes Mac, and he sits down in the water. Dennis gives a fake apology using the onion from earlier to produce tears.
Yeah, I thought it was such a terrible thing where it's like, he wrote to me. Does he still write? Well, he never got a letter back, bud. That just
which is so good, dude.
That was just
even like the fake crying as soon as he started. I knew he was faking it, but it was still funny. And I'm like, oh yeah, they're gonna bring back the onion right there. And then they bring back the onion. I was like, all right, I'm here for this.
Yep. And the whole Mac owns a Romo jersey thing that's a great one too. I enjoyed that a lot. I mean, this was a great scene with all four characters interacting with each other. This was a pretty damn good one.
I absolutely loved it. And again, the whole Mac owns a Romo jersey is like, that's I kind of almost forgot that really like was in this episode like that. That is one of my favorite, just that idea. And that later on, Mac even references it and talks about Des Bryant, like he doubles down on it. It's such an interesting hill to die on from a Philly, because I think McElhenney's he is the Eagles fan of them all. He's the one from Philly. So,
yep.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting call. And
this was a good one. The Dennis fake crying really worked for me. And it was cool that they brought the onion back. From there, Magnum Mills, we start to see Frank. He's confessing to some sort of responsibility for the Chappaquiddick incident involving Ted Kennedy. But Dee cuts him off saying that they're doing tattling, not confessions. Try to keep up. And Dennis implores the group to stop fighting and enjoy their remaining time together. I don't know about you, Magnum Mills, but I really wanted to hear the rest of Frank's confession.
Oh, I want that movie. I want like that prequel or something like that, please.
Yeah, that would be great. But Dee's funny here with like, we're doing tattling, not confessions. Like, God, that would be a whole nother
that'd be an Usher album.
Yes.
Sure. And they talk about like, all right, and I will say that when Frank was confessing, at one point I thought he was gonna like, remember how he'd always start doing it? He'd basically just start describing like the Rambo movie. He'd done that a few times. I thought maybe that's where he was gonna go with it. Did not go there. But then as that scene kind of winds down, they talk about, all right, so we have to kind of accept that this is what it is. We might be here for 10 minutes or 10 hours or 10 days or who knows how long. And then we get a quick hard cut to 10 minutes later. The room is almost completely filled with water. I mean, the gang is just enough room to kind of keep their faces up and breathe. The gang implores Mac to ask God to save them because, God must be the most familiar with Mac because, he's talked to him the most. It seems hopeless, and one by one, the gang let themselves slip underwater, sink to the bottom. They gather in a semicircle and hold hands as they wait for the end to come. It seems that a light appears above them and they all fight each other as they attempt to swim towards it.
Yeah, the one thing that just annoyed me so much because of the way my brain works is like there was all those big pipes from the ceiling. Why didn't they just hang on? you could just grab on and kind of float. I mean, God, if Jack could hang on to a piece of freaking wooden furniture in the middle of the frozen Atlantic, you think you could hang on to this pipe?
He's gonna bring Titanic into it.
Hold on, Jack. Hold on. No, move over and let him out.
I don't know. I could barely like sit my ass in a movie seat for the length of that movie. So I don't know. I don't know if that would work.
Me in a survival situation, I'm like, dude, hang on to those pipes, bro. But I digress. One thing that I thought was funny was Frank being like, no, I'm too young to drown.
Well, Frank gets all the best quotes in this. He does that one. He's got the joint where he's singing Amazing Grace, and he's like, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sauce.
Yeah. And when he finally goes down, I'm going down. Highway to hell, baby.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. And when they're trying to get Mac to like talk to God and like whatever, and he's like, otherwise Jesus is gonna know we're trying to trick him. And Mac obviously goes back to the Cowboys thing, talks about Romo throwing touchdowns to Des Bryant. A little bit too much for an Eagles fan, but I laughed. And honestly, tell me, Jamie G, that wasn't like the greatest miracle request from Mac to God, was it? Like it really didn't seem he really put his whole heart into that one.
No, I think Mac's capable of a bit better there, to be honest with you. But look, it seemed to work, man. I mean, it really was a miracle there at the end. I did enjoy where they're seeing the light go on. They're having that moment where they're at peace with one another and holding hands and prepared to die as the gang. And I did like, as soon as they see the light and they realize somebody's out there, they're holding each other down, using their feet to kick off and propel off people's faces. Like, that was just fun to see them fight to their way to the top.
I mean, probably more fun for us than it was for them. And then finally, we go back to the White Room where we had opened and finished the previous episodes of this episode, and the gang finishes up their story, and we see that they're actually in the office of an insurance adjuster. Mac asks the adjuster to note that Mac is in fact not gay, and he now figures that God must be real because he saved them, and since God is real, he must not be gay. The adjuster informs them that they might have been in line for some compensation had they not just admitted to breaking several laws. He tells them that the ship was hit by a huge wave, which caused the crash, and the insurance company has deemed it an act of God.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit before. This somewhat surprised me a little bit here with the insurance adjuster play. They could have did a lot of different things with this. I'm not mad at it. I thought it was cool. I guess the other thing that was a little bit strange and a head scratcher is the fact that the captain wasn't drunk. I guess maybe it was just kind of like they see everybody as themselves and what they would do. And maybe that's the idea here, is not everyone's a raging alcoholic like the gang.
Yeah, it makes sense overall. Not the probably optimal ending. I thought it was funny enough. I was kind of surprised if they did reset the clock and have Matt go back in the closet after this, but it seemed, pretty on point, par for the course for the gang to screw themselves out of a big cash payout.
Oh, yes. If there's one thing the gang does, it's insert their foot into their mouth and miss out on cash. Magnum Mills, before we move on, anything you want to talk about that anybody really liked or that we didn't cover?
Actually, I think we're probably pretty good on this one. Anything from yourself? Same thing, that we didn't get to?
I don't think so, Magnum Mills. I think we pretty much spelled it out, man. I guess it's time to hand out a little hardware. We should probably go ahead. Let's start with our favorite piece of dialogue from this episode. For me, Magnum Mills, I really liked when Charlie, the whole scene where Frank's trying to get him to understand what the orange juice is, and Charlie looks at him. It's like, when was the last time you drank straight mixer? I mean, it was really funny to me. I get that it was something that for you was like, come on, there's no way he's that dumb, but it just worked. I don't question anything with Charlie. I just have fun with Charlie, and this was just a funny line for me, dude. I found myself laughing. Like that was a good line.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially because Frank gives what Charlie recently had a Diet Cola mixer. The fact that Frank has such a good reply to it, I think that's a great exchange. For me, it just has to be Dennis doing CCH Pounder. I'm not even going to attempt to do it, but it's about Dutch and what else he's doing for the DA, and it is just just here, listen for yourself.
God damn it, Dutch! What other errands do you have us running for the DA?
Pretty good, right? I mean, like as Frank says, like you immediately know from the impression kind of what he's doing, and not in a like racist stereotype way, which is what you get when Dee does her Obama.
Yes, D doing the Obama was very uncomfortable and
It sounded
terrible.
like, I think that was meant to be, because it sounded just like
Yes.
all of her other very stereotypical impressions. So that brings us to our favorite, moment or scene from the episode. I went back and forth on this one a little bit, because I was definitely tempted to just give it to just Howerton again for the scene with my favorite quote. But I'm going to actually go to the scene where they're just firing back and tattling on each other. I just think that's great. Just the whole exchange there, the Romo jersey being one that definitely cuts deepest, but I think might be the funniest. And then the one that probably means the most to the plot, about Dennis withholding the Max letters from his dad from prison. So that's it for me. Jamie G, what was your favorite, kind of scene or moment from the episode?
Yeah, I had a couple here but in the end I settled on the scene where we first get Frank and Charlie walking in the bowels of the boat, and we see Frank in the captain uniform, and then we see Charlie as his first mate, and he's Gilligan. This scene was so funny to me, and where they come up with the idea to basically make the torpedo juice. I was laughing, and the fact that they thought that just good thing you got one of those. He pulls out the wrench. Good thing you got one of those. We're just gonna get right into this massive pipe that flows.
I don't know where they put
the
that in that
diesel fuel
suitcase
for the
that was
boat.
full of beer. Talk about making it heavier.
Yeah.
So Jamie G, I just do want you to commit to right now on the Night Pod Cometh to, at some point, have a drink that you probably, I guess we have to invent, called torpedo juice, and you're gonna have one.
Absolutely. We are going to come up with a torpedo juice drink for the Night Pod Cometh. We will drink it.
There may or
we
may
might
not
even
be
share
rum ham juice in the torpedo juice. We'll see.
We'll see. There'll be something.
It's hard to ham it up in the drinking era. But
Oh, hey. Oi. I do know this, Magnum Mills. We will drink it. And if you're lucky out there on the Night Pod Cometh listenership, we will share the recipe with you, if you understand the implication. Magnum Mills, if we live. It is time for us, my dude, to talk about our 5-star man or woe man. And this is where we rank the members of the gang from 1 to 5 stars based on these 2 episodes. For me, Magnum Mills, I am going to rank them as such. The 1 star was D. She had her moments here with getting shit in the mouth and some physical comedy and the punch. But for me, she was the weak link here for me. She's certainly the 1 star. 2, I really struggled with. I'm going to put Mac there, just because even though Mac had some really great moments, I needed to put Charlie at the 3-star man. And Dennis is my 4-star man here, bro. Like, I was going to do Dennis is 2 and Mac is 4, but Dennis crept up to my 4-star man. His impressions, absolutely hilarious. His just some of the different things he does, even though a lot of it is based around being completely creepy and over the top. I'm a Dennis guy through and through. I moved him up to number 4. And then my 5-star man of the episode was, in fact, Frank. He has a tremendous time. I don't know about you, but I want to go take a cruise with Frank any day of the week, twice on Sunday. He's having the time of his life here on the boat. As he said, this boat is the tits.
He's way flexible. Let's just get down to it. Actually, my 1-star man is, it might be blasphemy, but it's Dennis Reynolds. Because he really, think about what he did. He basically spent the entire cruise stalking a young girl. And then we found out that he withheld letters to Mac from his dad from prison that may have prevented Mac from having a relationship with his dad. Not great, Bob. My 2-star man, I got to go with Charlie, just because, again, he's just way too dumb in the episode. And he gets all of their beer confiscated. Got to say, Gilligan outfit, pretty clutch. 3-star woman is D, because she literally commits assault over a chair that she didn't even fucking have dibs on, and she had a bird shit in her mouth. I do like that she does call out Mac on wearing the Romo jersey, so she gets a little bump up for that. My 4-star man here is Mac. I mean, think about it. He's got some real revelations about himself. And had he not gone back in the closet at the end of the episode, would have been my 5-star man. But I got to ding him for going back in the closet here. That makes my 5-star man Frank Reynolds. Dude, he's having fun throughout the whole episode. Fucking awesome captain's outfit. Didn't even mind when he thought he might be a demon when his cross necklace was burning him. And he may have played a major role in a very famous American scandal. He literally endangered the whole ship to create tornado juice. Got to give it up. Frank Reynolds, my 5-star man.
Is it? It's torpedo juice, but I do like the remix there with tornado juice. That even has a better ring.
Oh shit! Did I say tornado juice? Actually, I like the both. I am a foosball man, so I had a little tornado on the brain, maybe. But yeah, shout out both. We'll leave it in the episode. Even that's I like it both ways. We'll make it tornado or
tornado tornado.
Torpedo tornado.
It will be a drink for the ages. That is for sure. Magnum Mills. It is that time of the episode
where we drink a suitcase full of beer. Oh, shit.
Well, yes, absolutely. We're going to take 5 minutes and chug.
A suitcase.
I feel like I could drink that whole suitcase.
Yeah, not the most efficient way of smuggling the beer. That's all I got to say.
No, not there.
The beer
there
is
might
not
be
the
a better
most
way.
efficient thing to smuggle onto a dry cruise.
Nope, you got liquor is probably a better bet.
Yeah, and they're pros. They never would have got that on. Like literally, they know how to like shake water to make sure there's no bubbles to tell if it's like vodka instead of water. And it's very, very, very hard to smuggle booze onto a cruise.
Yes,
Just
it
FYI.
is because the money is in the alcohol sales. Dry cruises, it's probably even harder.
The more
Magnum
you know.
Mills, the more you know. We need to get out not our beers. Well, we got our beers, but we're also going to get out our wallets and grade this thing. We grade on a scale of 0 to 100 patty bucks, with 100 being the absolute best. In this case, we've got to hand out multiple grades. I think we need to grade each episode and then grade them as a whole. I will go first. I am grading The Gang Goes to Hell Part 1 with 79 patty bucks. It was definitely not as bad as I thought it was going to be, as I remembered. There's a lot of good shit in here. I enjoyed it, dude. It was kind of a fun watch for me. Call me a jerk, call me whatever you want. Jerks almost was the name of this show, by the way. They almost went with Jerks. But anyways, 79 patties bucks for episode 2 here. The Gang Goes to Hell Part 2. I am going to give it a 75 patties bucks. I'm down $4 on this thing. Still enough to buy a bunch of beers and stimulate our own economy at Patty's, but certainly down $4 from episode 1. Magnum Mills.
Yeah, that sounds fair. I will go and kind of give my grades for both episodes and then my combined grade. It's kind of, you have to grade on a scale, right? And the scale is of Sunny episodes. And the first episode here isn't the worst, but it's not great. There's a lot of fat that could be trimmed. So I think I got to give it to Bill and Ted 69, dude. It is what it is. But I'm going to give part 2 a solid 80. It's, very good. A lot of fun, really. There's most of my favorite parts of the entire 2-parter come from that episode. So I have to lean towards that. But I will say, I don't really love it it feels a little bit long as a 2-parter, but it does, like, they're trying to give arcs to it with the gluttony. They're doing the 7 sins thing. They're trying to have Mac do his conversion thing. So I will give it a combined grade of a 77, which is definitely closer towards the better end than the lower end. I do think there is some fat to be trimmed. They were trying to do a lot, and again, it's just, for the most part, Sunny has struggled with generally season premieres, season finales, and 2-parters. And here you've got one that's a 2-for on that end, being that it's a 2-parter to end a season.
Yeah, hard to argue there, Magnum Mills. For my combined grade, I'm going to split my score of $79.74 patties bucks, and I'm going to do 76 combined. I think that's fair. It's still not bad. I like even a $76 in patties bucks money, bro. I'm there for that. It's not like it's terrible. It's not my favorite Sunny episode ever, but these were solid, dude. we'll say this throughout this journey of doing season 11. Season 11 is a very good season. Like, it may be my favorite season.
Yeah, I mean, this probably would have been more beneficial. It's the only two-parter that's put at the beginning of the end of the season. I think it would have been better kind of if they, I really think it was a production thing why this became a two-parter. I would say that when they actually do the official like Sunny podcast on this, I will be very curious to hear why this was the two-parter to end the season. To a certain extent, that's kind of why we're doing a little bit of these later episodes, because listen to that, because those guys obviously, they did this and it's great to listen to. And just, when you enjoy something like this, it's important to just, consume all the media on it and just have a good time with it and enjoy being part of the fandom.
Absolutely, bro. Absolutely. Thank you guys for checking us out, commenting, liking, subscribing, all that good stuff. We appreciate it. We'll be back soon to cover another episode from season 11. Don't you worry. We got you covered right here on the Night Pod Cometh. Magnum Mills. Tell the people where to find all of our other free content.
And I don't want to spoil anything, but we may or may not need a seaweed break before we do the next episode. And, again, thanks for checking us out. We're the Night Pod Cometh. Find us on your favorite podcast platform if you're not already subscribed by searching for Night Pod Cometh on social media at Night Pod Cometh. We're from the Joe Blow Football Show, who you can find at joeblowfootballshow.com and on social media at Joe Blow Show. We're also covering the 6th and final season of Peaky Blinders on our podcast, PvP, a Peaky Blinders podcast. Find us by searching for PvP, Peaky Blinders on your favorite podcast platform. We're on social media at Peaky Podcast, and we're also the Ozark Podcast. Find us at Ozark Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, at Ozark Podcast and social media, because the final 7 episodes of Ozark are about to drop later in April. I'm Magnum Mills. He's Jamie G. This has been the Night Pod Cometh. Thank you again for checking us out. And remember, we really appreciate that you are a fighter for the Night Pod Cometh.
Whoa.
This has been the Night Pod Cometh, presented by the Joe Blow Football Show. We are in no way associated with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, 3 Arts Entertainment, RCG Productions, FXP, or FXX. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Any views or opinions expressed here are personal and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations who may or may not be associated with the Joe Blow Football Show. If you have any questions, please contact us at nightpodcometh@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Please remember to like, subscribe, and comment.
I'll tell you what, Pondy's the coolest, bro.
Dude, Fondy is really the coolest.